Well, I certainly hope you grabbed your pen and your paper today, because we are going to get an absolute masterclass from the captain, Captain Jack Andrews from Unabated, joining us today, more like Professor Jack Andrews today.
Okay, I'll go with that. I'll go with that.
I love it. How are you?
I'm good, man. It's been a while. It's been a couple weeks.
A couple weeks. It's been a crazy couple weeks. We had an entire National League Championship Series, World Series run for our Philadelphia Phillies. We've had several sports equinoxes. I don't know if that's a plural form of equinox.
Let's go with it.
Maybe it's like, I don't know. Finally, a chance to catch our breath. No NBA tonight. A very small, there's MACtion, but other than that, a pretty small slate of hockey games too. What do you do on a night where there's not much sports to be had?
I'm ready for a breather, Dan. I've been doing too much over the past month and a half, looking at 4 different sports in the same day. So I'm kind of looking forward to just take the night off a little bit and, maybe get ready for the rest of the week.
What does the captain do on a night where there's no sports? Sleep?
Netflix. I don't know. Yeah, it's there's a new season of Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix.
Ooh.
They just told me, so I kind of am a sucker for that show. But yeah, it's just I probably have to catch up on some content work for Unabated. That's actually what I should be doing.
I thought you were going to say, I was told there's a new season of Love is Blind, which is what my wife and I cannot stop watching. It is unbelievable content. If you weren't watching Market Movers, I would say go watch Love is Blind. Or both at the same time. 2 different screens.
If only we could bet on that.
I think I'd make a killing, because I have a great judge of character on that show, and they're all bad. So not that hard to figure that show out. We wanted to talk about a couple things today, Jack. We've talked about COV on Sport Trade before. We've talked about line movement before. But now we've got enough data from the NFL season, from the college football season, to really give you a clearer picture of exactly what we're talking about here on Sport Trade. Price movement, right? And the value of using Unabated. We are great partners with you. Sport Trade Unabated has been a fantastic partnership, but we want to show people how they can leverage that partnership using Unabated and trading on Sport Trade and why it's so important to jump on lines early in the week. So from your perspective as a sports trader, why is it advantageous to see those lines on a Monday for an NFL, for example, and jump on them?
This is something that I think your audience can relate to. This is efficient market theory. This is markets will tend towards efficiency. And we know that the closing line in a sports market is the most efficient line. We have all the injury information. We have the starting lineups. We have the weather information. We have maybe coaching. The coaching strategy has been tipped a little. There's a lot of things that are known more than they were several days before. So if we use that theory and we go back in time, then there's pieces of information that come out over the course of the week that start to build up the theory as to why the game will go the way it will. And that's going to shape the lines. That's going to influence some of the action that's coming in. Some of the sharp action is going to pick up on that. So let's take something simple like the weather. Do you know the weather 7 days from now?
Not reliably.
Right. Do you know the weather
tomorrow? As somebody who was in local news for a long time, I can tell you they don't either.
Do you know the weather tomorrow?
Maybe a little bit better.
Right. So there's a good example of if you're going to put down a bet on something that's happening 7 days from now, there's going to be more unknowns. But if you're going to be putting something down on something tomorrow, it's more known. And guess what? The line is going to be more known. The people that are making the line, shaping the line, they've already shaped it. So you need to find that middle ground somewhere where you're getting the information before the rest of the market. And weather's not a great example of this because weather's sort of like this known all around the world type of thing. But what if there's injury information or practice information about a player or coaching strategy? That might be something where if you are looking hard enough, deep enough into all of these different areas, sources of news, you can find things that'll help shape your narrative and help you get an edge.
So you're constantly trying to piece the puzzle together before anybody else, right? And a lot of those things you mentioned are factors you can't control, weather you can't control, but you can certainly look at injury reports, what goes on at practice. But there's also smoke screens from teams that will purposefully release news that maybe not be the truth. So how do you go about piecing that puzzle together in a reliable fashion?
Practice. Lots of practice. Basically, you can start to, if you do this long enough and if you do this deep enough, you can start to see when the market should be moving and what direction it should be moving and what moves are the reliable moves. And that's why I always talk about market makers, following these sports books that are out there around the world, worldwide ecosystem. They're the ones that are pointing the market towards where it's going. They're being shaped by the sharpest bettors. And that's one of those things you can do with Sport Trade is you can say, I'm finding this price discovery out there. I'm using Unabated's odds screen, and I'm finding the value, and maybe I'm beating the other bettors on Sport Trade and even the market makers on Sport Trade to that information, and I'm getting down. And the nice thing about Sport Trade is you guys are totally cool with it.
Well, it is, and we had a lot of examples of this. This is something that we shared with the employees at Sport Trade, and I think it's important to share it with everybody. And this is price increases from a Tuesday to a Saturday for college football. Now, if you look through this list, you'll see a lot of spreads, a decent amount of totals, not many money lines. So, Jack, when you were looking at a football game specifically, it could be college, it could be NFL, right? What are some of the telltale things that you were looking at in terms of a spread or in terms of a total? Because, at our core, we're a sports trading app, right? So that means not only do we have people like yourself who are professional sports bettors, but we have people who are trading in the financial markets who understand indicators in that market and when to buy, when to sell based on certain things, but they may not be as savvy or nuanced in what to look for in a betting market. So we'll use the example of some of the totals here, and we'll flip to the greatest decreases as well because there was a huge decrease in the game from Saturday. What are the things that you're looking at in a totals market to inform your trading?
Okay, so let's step through this.
Sure.
What would impact a total? Weather could be one. We've already kind of talked about weather, but weather could be one where that impact gets known further as the week goes on. The weather forecast becomes more reliable. That's also one that where people tend to overreact to it. We've been playing football in this country for 100 years, and people still can't seem to figure out if rain is good or bad for an over or under, if snow is good or bad. I'll let you know, rain is more of an underplay.
Wait, what?
But snow is an overplay.
Now, how?
It has a lot to do with traction. It has a lot to do with it's easier to run a route than to defend a route
Very
in
true.
conditions like that. The traction in rain is actually less than the traction in snow. A lot of different factors there. But point being is, let's get back to what moved the market. That's what you need to figure out. What moved that market? What could be moving that market? And then you have to figure out the timing of the market. So if a market is moving on a Tuesday morning, which a lot of these college markets move on a Tuesday morning, that's sharp syndicate action. That's what that is on a Tuesday morning. If the market is moving on a Friday afternoon, that's probably injury information or starting lineup information or late breaking information about teams and their lineups. And then if the market is moving on game day, that could be a lot of different things. That could be just
Is that primarily like public?
it could
Stuff
be,
coming in?
the markets don't always move to public action, but they sometimes do if there's enough of a wave there. That Tennessee-Georgia game this week was a good example of that. There was a lot of movement on that market because the public had the side that they wanted, and that was very influential in how the market was moving. But at the same time, the sharps had their side, and the books were siding with the sharps, and the books did fairly well.
Yeah. Well, we'll show you the other side of that, which is the negative line movement. That's if you took that side. Obviously, there's a conversely. We're looking at the number one movement from last week, and it was the Ohio State Northwestern over of 61.5. Started at 49.5. Then as the week started progressing, we started to get reports that the weather was going to be terrible, and that ended up being true, at least in the first half. So a nearly 25% change from Tuesday to Saturday. So what opened at 49.50 ended up closing at 37.25,
Right.
which was nearly 25% change. And then that bore out. It was 7 to 7 at halftime. I think the final score ended up being 21-7. So, and on the other side of that, if you were like, oh, wait a second, people are saying this is a possibility. Maybe Ohio State's kind of tough, right? Because they average like 50 points a game, and Northwestern was 1-7 coming in.
It's a
So,
Big Ten game. Yeah.
I mean, how does that factor in conference play?
Oh, well, conference play totally factors in just based on traditional form of play. Big Ten is always a bruising, linebacker-rich type of environment, low scoring.
But how do you handicap that for a team like Ohio State that has recruited and schemed differently than their conference brethren?
No, that's absolutely valid. I was just making the point where that total was already going to be on the low side to begin with, and now we had a weather play driving it even lower. And I feel that one might have moved too far. You can go a bridge too far. You can go too far into something, and you need to pull out a little. Yeah.
NFL also saw a great deal of movement from this past weekend, and we'll pull the graphic up now and show you. Indianapolis went from 30.5 to 34. They obviously ended up losing. They've had a tumultuous week, and surprisingly, they're playing the Raiders this weekend, who are also pretty terrible. But the Raiders have a coach as their head coach and not a former center. And surprisingly, Jack, the market really has not moved that much in favor of Las Vegas. And I can pull that market up for us a little later. Tennessee opened at 19 against the Chiefs, and it closed at 15. So that's a 21% drop of $4. Cincinnati opened on a Monday at $80. They got housed by the Browns on Monday Night Football. Sentiment came down to 76. They go out and absolutely thrash the Carolina Panthers. As I'm going through this graphic, I'm thinking, do we know anything? It doesn't feel like we know anything because everyone who's going down is winning and everybody going up is losing and firing their entire offensive coaching staffs. And this is the big one on the bottom here. Buffalo. So Buffalo opened at 86 last week. They closed at 82 against the Jets. Obviously, they lost. But Buffalo, Jack, presents maybe the greatest example we have so far this season of trying to beat a line. And that's because the entire NFL world, the entire betting world, is waiting to find out what's going on with Josh Allen's elbow. Is it a UCL injury? Sean McDermott has said they're still sort of waiting to get the test results back from some things they're doing on that throwing elbow. But as we sit here today, the Bills opened up yesterday at $78 per contract. They're now down to $70 because of the uncertainty. Sport Traded Net did not take the market down, but plenty of other places where you could bet don't have this market up right now. So as a sports bettor, as a sports trader, Jack, how do you approach this sort of situation?
So, Dan, I think we've talked about this before, that really there's only one position in the NFL that really matters, and that is the quarterback. So we finally have a situation where we can say, okay, well, how much does it matter? And at Unabated, we have our NFL season simulator. And what this is able to do is to take a team and you factor in how much the quarterback injured or not. And in this case, we could click next to the Bills and we could set their starting quarterback to be injured for 1 week or more. We could even edit that up to be, as many weeks as we want. And it tells us there that is a 6.34 point swing. And that's actually very easy to understand. That means in an average game, previously, the Bills would have been 9.3 points better than on a neutral field against an average opponent. And now if we have an injured quarterback in the form of Josh Allen being injured, that basically takes it down to about a 3-point edge they would have against an average team on a neutral field.
And we looked it up before the show. Case Keenum is the Bills' backup quarterback. This could be a lot worse.
Yes.
Other teams have seen unbelievable drop-offs, but this one's actually one of the better ones.
Right. For a long time, when the Packers would never have a decent replacement for Aaron Rodgers, like it was a 10 to 11 point swing, and we had some COVID issue last year where it was very uncertain, and the books were just pulling their hair out because that's like a 10-point swing in the line. They can't seem to fade that too well. So, yeah, this is always a situation where if you can get the edge on quarterback information, it's a huge, huge, huge edge in NFL betting.
I would never ask anyone to release a source, so we're just going to skip that next question. Thursday Night Football coming up, Jack. We'll go back to the odds screen here. We have the Carolina Panthers at Atlanta Falcons. Currently, if you're looking at this, Sport Trade, the best price here in the market on the Carolina Panthers money line at 41.5. According to Unabated, we have the Falcons at 60.5. This is the money line. Do you have a lean on a total or a spread I can pull up, or do you just want to tackle the money line?
I mean, it's Atlanta at Carolina. Yeah. Does the fun ever start? Like this is just a game. Why would we watch this?
Well, they just played 2 weeks ago and they went to overtime. It's 37-34. Nobody could get a stop.
Right. Oh, that was quite a game actually at the end, but only because of the incompetence.
Yes, very true. So to that point, the total 44.5 and over 43.5. Let's see at Sport Trade we have it at 43.50.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I look. You know, my basic strategy on Thursday night games is to look for unders.
Yeah.
Even though that game against them the last time was a 60-point game, this is still Thursday. The teams have less time to prepare, less time to rest. They have less time to adjust their offense to the defense. And I'm still going to probably look under on this one.
So the market is fading you, Captain Jack, because it looks like the under opened at 51, meaning a 51% chance, and now it's at 48.5.
Right. And I think there's some 44.5s out there in the rest of the broader market. If this were to go to 45.5 is a dead under for me. I'm definitely jumping on the under at 45.5. If we get to 45, I might take a little taste of it. At this point, that 45. Remember we talk about the odd numbers in totals.
Yeah, right.
So that is a key number enough that I will be looking to play the under if I can find it at 45.
So remind us again why 45 is a key number.
Just think of the fact that you can't get 22 to 22. It's probably not going to stay that way because it's going to go to overtime and somebody's going to score, or in that case, 2 weeks ago, somebody's going to not score for a while. But 45 being an odd number, you're going to have 23, 22. All the permutations add up to have a little bit more frequency when it's an odd number.
So Scoreagami. A Twitter feed that you're following closely.
Of course. I love it.
I do too. We'll transition to college basketball now. We'll keep up the odds site here. If you have existed for more than 2 seconds in gambling Twitter, on Twitter, obviously, you would know people seem to think that this is the time of the year to print money. This is the time of the year where markets are conceivably very soft. There's over 300 Division I basketball programs. It has to be impossible to understand everything about every team with all the freshmen and guys who have redshirted and the transfers and everything like that. So an opportunity to make some money here as a trader. For someone like me who covered college basketball for a long time, Jack, but I don't necessarily know the things to look for in a college football market or in general early in the season, while lines and markets can be a little easier to pick off. What are some of the things that we should be looking for?
All right. So first of all, Dan, I took my helicopter into Camden today
good.
because I bet on college basketball yesterday. I'm
Wow.
filthy rich now.
What kind?
I just got to. It's
Standard.
Standard. Yeah,
Standard,
it's a standard.
Yeah,
with
standard
the
counter.
things.
Only seats 8. It's not that big.
No, the point is, like, yes, everybody gets excited anytime there's a new season. We see this with NFL. We see this with college football. We see this with. They just believe like the sky is going to be the limit. It's going to be so easy. And I'll give them this. Early season in any league is going to be easier to beat than late season. The market is a little less efficient. What do you do, though, when it comes to trying to beat college basketball, especially if you're not a handicapper or an originator or someone who even has their own opinion? And to be honest, Dan, that's the better approach. Don't have an opinion. Let the market be your guide. Let the market tell you what the efficient number should be, where you should be looking to get your money in at. And, you focus on, if you're using unabated, you can focus on the unabated line, which is a curated, blended line of all the sharpest books in the world. And we weight them down so it's not like all just Pinnacle or all just Bookmaker. And we are able to kind of point people to like, this is the true north. This is the true market line, and you can find where you can pick off the inefficiencies. And yesterday, Dan, our screen was glowing green because there were inefficiencies all over the place. And I think that's going to continue for a while in the college basketball market. Now, we only have a handful of games tonight. And
Right. So Sportrade's only listing 2 games tonight, and that is Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and Purdue. Go Panthers. And Coppin State and Georgetown. Now, a little feather in our cap. If you really wanted to get money down on Georgetown, best price out there, 94. Go for it.
yeah, well, laying those big, heavy favorites or those big underdogs, I'm not sure I could advise people to do that.
Yeah, it was a bit facetious.
Right. But, if you look at the spreads and the totals, there's even some opportunities there.
So we do have a negative hold here with Sportrade having the best price on Purdue at 95.6. In the app, I believe that's 95.5. So walk us through how you would trade this. How would you bet this with a negative hold, which is advantageous to the trader?
Right. So you can see that those two numbers there add up to less than 100. So there is an overlay out there. If they added up to more than 100, that would sort of like be the probability, and that means that the house has an edge. But since they add up to less than 100, the player has an edge. So if you were to bet proportionally between FanDuel and Sportrade, you can guarantee that you would have an expected profit of 0.42% of whatever you bet. Now, let's say Sportrade has $5,000 of liquidity available on this. They're the heavy side. You're gonna have to lay more there. Over on FanDuel, you only have to lay, it's about 25 to 1. So you'd have to maybe lay 200 there and 5,000 at Sportrade, and you would have a guaranteed profit. There's a lot of people that love arbitrage. They love doing this. It's risk free, and they're just basically piling up the pennies and the dimes and the quarters and the dollars. Like it slowly builds, but it does build. It's risk free.
So it looks like currently we have 34 contracts available of Purdue to win, which is a liquidity of just over 3,300.
Okay.
So in that example, what you could do is you could do that and then go elsewhere and see if you were able to.
Right, and you're going to bet about $150 over at FanDuel. Now there on the edge, there like the FanDuel side's the edge, the side that actually has the advantage. And with these long shot odds, you see these double-digit edges. It's a little bit deceptive because that FanDuel side's not going to win. Like, yeah, that's where your edge is, but that's not going to win.
Right.
So, but you can still maybe weight the FanDuel side a little bit heavier because it's almost like a free roll at that point.
Well, who knows? Temple was a minus 10,000 favorite last night and lost. So
that's true.
Who knows? Go Owls. Okay, so why is it that? And maybe I laid the case out for this earlier, but why is it that college basketball is so difficult to handicap this early? Is it because of just the lack of information to start, or is it because all the moving parts, or just sort of a homogenization of all that stuff?
Well, let's make a hypothesis here, Dan.
Yeah.
College basketball these days is largely one and done, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of players that are just going to be in it for a year. And now with the name and likeness, they can, if they don't like their school, they can just hop to another school and pursue
with
something.
no penalty, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's very much a very haphazard market. I would not want to be a bookmaker in college basketball early season. You basically you're probably pulling up Ken Pomeroy's site and you're using his power rankings and you're just trying to book off of that and then the sharp action as much as you can find it. But for the most part, like you're just guessing, and it's good that you get 11 to 10 against the average bettor. Now, come to Sport Trade and your poor market makers are getting like 10.02 to 10. Like they're just operating on very thin margins. I feel for you guys sometimes, not
He's
you.
referring to VIGs, right?
Right. So in other words, they have far less cushion than DraftKings and FanDuel and the like, and that's good for the bettor because the less cushion the bookmaker has, the greater chance that we have a chance to squeak out a win.
Do you have a preference, side, total on college basketball?
I like totals. I've always liked totals, and I feel there are different influences in totals about pace of play, speed. If you go to Ken Pomeroy's site, he has a pace rating that for years was a great kind of tip towards what side you wanted to be on in a total. Now that market is largely more efficient. But you know what? Honestly, Dan, I just like to find what the sharp books have and then find the inefficiencies and cash in.
I love hearing that. I had a question. No, I can't remember what it was. Oh yeah, about totals, right? You've said in the NFL, like the 37.5 is like the bottom of the bottom that you would ever think of that a book would list. Obviously, college basketball is very different, right? You have 300 teams with different paces and all kinds of different talent levels. Let's just say for an ACC or a Big Ten or obviously varying differences in play style. We'll say like ACC. Is there a total number that you have a similar policy for? Or is the variance between teams so great that every game is different, as opposed to an NFL where you say that's like your baseline?
If I did have a number, I can't think of what it would be at this point. I feel like the college basketball these days is very much a different game in different conferences, a different game all across the nation, and it's tough to put a label on it like that. Now, if you were to ask me on college football, and we have the service academies that, they can't set the total low enough with these service academies, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a similar in the college basketball. I can't think of one where it's just like that school, those schools in that conference are always so low. I just can't think of one. But it's, again, Ken Pom, like he has those ratings and they put enough work into it that it's worth looking at.
Before we go, I do just want to pull up the college football games tonight. We have MACtion on Sport Trade tonight. Ball State, Toledo, Ohio, Miami of Ohio, Eastern Michigan, and Akron. And if you take a look, Sport Trade, the owner of many of the best prices available for you. Two favorites and an underdog. Ball State at 21, Ohio at 55, Eastern Michigan at 71, perhaps. An opportunity here with a negative hold. Have you done any college football work for? Oh no, you're taking the night off. No, you're watching Unsolved Mysteries. I put you on the spot. That's my fault. No MACtion for you tonight.
No MACtion for me. No MACtion for me tonight. And look, college football is one of those sports where you need to take it in doses. I get to the end of my Saturdays and I'm just beat from trying to keep up with line moves and seeing things go, and then also kind of helping out maintain Unabated and making sure that we're running smoothly because we get tons of traffic on Saturdays. So yeah, I kind of don't want to even think about it on a Tuesday.
Anything Unabated you want to plug before we say goodbye?
We now have some props, NBA props tools. You can now do inline simulations and load in projections for NBA props. So if you're at let's say a Thursday night on the NBA, it's a low slate. There's usually like 2 or 3 games. You can come over to Unabated and look at props that day and take a chance to see what's out there. Go to NBA and then just go to props. That's the prop simulator. And then second one, there you go.
There we go.
And you can load in. So if you drop, now there's probably not any real, because this is all games tomorrow. There's no NBA tonight. So, right. But you could load in projections from a variety of sites, and then you can simulate it in line and find out what your edge is. There's always going to be something to be found in props. Props are rich right now for bettors.
Of course, nobody here would ever trade on props until we release them. So that's great knowledge to know for when we do that. But obviously, head over to Unabated and take advantage of their incredible suite of tools. Captain Jack, always so fun to have you here. I feel like we learn so much. The Slack channel has been popping ever since you opened your mouth about all the things they learn
Cool.
every time you come and visit us. So we're very appreciative of it. And on a Tuesday, no less. And I think we'll be maybe doing this with some increased frequency on Tuesdays. Usually we have you on Thursdays, but we're going to switch it up. So thank you for watching Market Movers. This has been fun. For Catherine Jack Andrews, I'm Dan Koob. We're here tomorrow with Guy Adami of CNBC fame. We'll be joining Market Movers remote from his man cave, I guess. We'll talk about his disappointing New York sports franchises and how he approaches trading as a trader as well. So we will catch you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Have a good one.